Good morning, everyone, and a happy Thursday. It depends on what you mean is what, them. With text editor, yes. Ba-da-da-da. Okay. Toit. Right, so what are we going to do today? We're going to do a lot. I'm going to try to get things done. But first, we're going to drink coffee, like grown-ups do. Oh, damn, this is really growing on me. Well, one shot a day. No mas. Okay, so what are we going to do today? We're going to build an input field as part of the controls. Now, I wrote a controller for this already for doing multi-line stuff. I just forgot about it. But we're going to get around that, and we're going to make this work for an input field rather than a multi-line document. That's what we're going to do. Okay. Should we hop to it? Yeah, I guess we'll start by analyzing what is working here. How this is actually built up, right? To do this, ideally, well, if I wasn't streaming this, I would have a notepad and I would write things down. But since I'm not going to do that because you guys can't see the notepad, we'll just write this in our wiki. We'll do this as anathema input field. Then we're going to go back here and load that. All right. Cool beans. So we start by having something that represents the input state. That should keep track of the cursor X and cursor Y. What else do we need for this thing? So according to this, we're separating this into a buffer cursor as well and a screen cursor. That is what we call something else in the input field. We actually have that already. Where's the input? Yeah, so we have the display cursor and the actual cursor. So we're going to not call it that because that's stupid. So we're going to call it cursor X, cursor Y, display cursor X. Now we don't need the Y because this is a single line text input. So we can skip the Y part of this thing. So we could just call it cursor and display cursor in that case, right? Whoops. Control V, please, brain. We don't need a title. We do need to have the text in question. Show cursor could be a thing. Although I don't know when we would ever want to not show the cursor. So we won't build things until people ask for them, right? So this one is the state, and it does not deal with anything in relation to that. Okay, then we have the component, which is known as the document in this case, right? Ooh, that's a good point, Enrico. Show cursor is now there, right? That is a very good point. Okay, so is there a component implementation for this? Yes, there is. So this one goes to apply instruction. So instruction is really what we do here, right? So for the component, we need to get the element size. Then we get the overflow. So we never cared about the inner size for the overflow. This is what I don't understand. How do we know the size of the document? This is what boggles my mind. Is it based on the line count? Line count? Maybe we don't need that, right? So we could then say notes. We don't need the size of the overflow as the text itself is the size, right? So we just calculate the size and that's it. It annoys me when I have done things that were better in the past than the new things I'm making, but that's okay. This was written off stream. Whenever you see code written by me that is an entirely shit, that's because it was written off stream. Okay. Anyway. So let's see what the update cursor function does, right? Stop trying to make size a thing. We get the screen cursor, which is probably our display cursor. If the screen cursor is above the visible space, then scroll the overflow up to the cursor. Oh, so we scroll that to make that match the cursor. Is that how we do it? Okay, so first we move the cursor. That's how we do it, right? So updating the cursor. All right, first, move the cursor. If the cursor ends up outside of the visible, don't just spell, space, then then scroll the overflow and subtract from the cursor. Let's give an example here, right? If the cursor is at or ends up at -10, that means set the cursor to 0. Scroll the viewport 10 cells to the left. So simple, right? If the display cursor is positioned at an X value larger than the element width, scroll the viewport to. Okay, so we need to, so what's the math we're doing here, right? Then the offset is equal to cursor display cursor plus 1 minus width. By offset. Display cursor is width minus 1. Okay. Those are the only things that we have to care about here, I think. So what I was doing yesterday was vastly overcomplicating everything. So let's just go and write this update cursor function then, right? I need some better music. I wish Spotify could just give me some mix of what I like. That isn't what I've heard already 100 times. All right, so we're gonna make this thing into a larger component now. Let's start by doing source input change.rs. And we'll move these out of here. No, that's bad. Let's not do that. Not that. Yeah, I was in voice chat yesterday, but I was so tired yesterday as well that I didn't hang out there for more than maybe like 40 minutes or so, I think. And in the end, I just went. I was really just there because someone wanted to talk about streaming setups, and I thought I'd hang out there and give people a chance to come and ask questions, but it's all tickety-boo. Okay, so these are the changes. That's the direction. Maybe we don't need to go. Yeah, I think I'm overcomplicating this. Oh, cool. The changes stays the same. The text stays the same. The state should have some other things, right? So we have actual cursor becomes cursor, and that becomes display cursor. Did we ever use the actual cursor for this? Yeah, we have a cursor. No. Oh, screen cursor is temporary, and it's the... Oh, really? Okay, so let's do that then. That's way smarter. Let's not have two of these that we are tracking. That makes more sense. I never wrote this test. Okay, so let's write the test for the bug then. Was it Temporis? No, they are not. Temporis has probably been streaming for longer than I have. I don't know. Danaka talked about streaming, but I don't know if he's going to start streaming or not. Okay, let's make this fail. So to make this fail, we need a container, we need a horizontal stack, we need a spacer, and we need text ABC, right? Okay, and the way this will fail is if the container has a width of 4. So this should be ABC like this. But not quite. Hello, Rithel. How you doing? Are you keeping up with the Kardashians, mate? So 2 is the height. That one's fine. 6 is the internal size. So if we change this 6 to 3, then we can shave this off. And that's what we should be getting. Let's make this work though. Not really. What is that supposed to mean, eh? Is school going alright? Shit, it's working. What if we make it into 4 then? Damn it, that is working. This wasn't working yesterday. It shouldn't be working. I got an offer from a sponsor yesterday, and so I get these offers now and then. I'm probably gonna take this sponsor, by the way. So I get these offers now and then, and one of the things they ask me if I like, okay, tell me more, right? Then they ask me like what's your availability and what's your rate for doing this and all these things, right? And I have no idea how to price stuff up. So I just said, how about $1 billion, but then you can counter with a more realistic offer. And they didn't hear back from them, so I thought maybe they didn't understand that I was joking. No, it will be so. If I'm doing a sponsored segment on my streams, it is not gonna be for a game, I don't think, unless it's a game that I'm really into. But those games rarely need sponsored segments, do they? Right? Games that are good, the games that are good that I'm interested in, they tend to sort of grow organically, right? Ah, it's the man from Portsmouth. How you doing? Rewriting Balatro in Rust? No, but Balatroidvania, that's the next thing now, so you guys know. It's Balatroidvania. Is it... what if we do this then? Damn it, that still works. This wasn't working yesterday. I managed to break this yesterday. Why is it working now? Portsmouth. What are you saying? Mouth for? Portsmouth? Ah, it must be on the other side, not close to that Lincolnshire. Or sorry, Lincolnshire. But or what about people from Connecticut? Try NordVPN. I'm actually using NordVPN, so I could have done shill for them. It works. I have no issues with it, but I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so I might do a sponsor segment at some point soon. That will help pay for the busted plumbing, right? But why is this working? Okay, let me open up the bug report I wrote yesterday. Where are you? Okay, so surely it's not because of the border, right? No, it's on the container. I figured out, VMT. Your name is Kevin and you live in Portugal. I don't know, sister, what now? It's a VPN, yeah. Can work with Kevin. I can't work with Kevin. He's always trying to steal my thunder. All right, so let's make this happen then. So if the container width is 12, then we add an H stack and a spacer and the text. This is text. We probably need to make this one a little bit bigger then, right? What, 15, yeah? So 19 by 2. Ah! What are you doing, man? 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Okay. That'll be 15 increments. No, that would have been 14 increments. All right. And then this should say this is text, right? Eep. Ah. Damn it, why are you working, you freaking thing? This is not how bugs are supposed to be. Why am I worried that it's working? Because I got it to not work yesterday. So let's go to temp, cargo new, and a bug. Cargo add, anathema, cargo run, which would just show hello world. That's okay. Let's make a directory called templates. And let's make a new template index ammo code. I'm going to copy the thing that isn't working. This thing is not working. I wonder why. Okay. Then we need that, and we're going to run this. And there you go. Text is gone. Why is text gone? Is it because of the border? No, it's not because of the border. So this is literally what we're having, right? Container, blah, blah, blah. No. Stop it. What's the difference here? There isn't one. Container, HStack, spacer, text. Yeah, we have one less. Okay, let's make this thing a little bit bigger. Well, we have a fix of 19 there, so that would be akin to doing a border with a width of 19 plus the border size, right? And a height of 2 plus the border size. Oh, I see. Check this out. You sneaky biscuit. Okay. All right. Well, at least we know what it is. Then we don't need to add... Well, there's no harm in having the test in there. This is fine. But let's get rid of the container with there. Let's just have a spacer test in here instead. And let's just clean this up a little. Is that about it? Yeah. Okay. So this is fine and correct. The issue isn't there. The issue is in the runtime, and I'm reasonably confident that that means that the bug is worse than I thought. I guess we'll have to chase that down, right? Okay. Right, but we need an input field before we can do anything. So the display cursor is not really a thing, is it? The display cursor becomes a result of updating the cursor. So let's write the update cursor. Display cursor, you can go away. I don't know if we need that. Did we even put this on the dock? No. Well, we have the height of the dock there. I don't know why. Probably to show something. But yeah. How you doing, Caleb? How you doing? This here. I don't think we need this. We don't need this or this either. We need the text and the cursor. I am traumatized, damn it. I spent so much time thinking about that. And then I was talking to my wife about it as well. And my conclusion is not going to be part of the popular opinion. Because I think the punishment is disproportionate to the crime. That's my verdict. I think the whole thing is, I think someone acted poorly, but I think that people do that all the time, right? Again, doesn't mean that it's okay, but I think the desired outcome and the reaction is that of a jaded or jilted person, not proportionate to the crime, I think. We're not going to talk about it. I was just answering a Caleb or something. Anyway, we're going to look at extras and we're going to figure this out. So I'm sorry for misleading you guys into a conversation that you don't get to be participating in. But okay. We have the screen cursor and then we update the screen cursor and self cursor. And self cursor does what? Yeah, because of the overflow. But that one makes me a little bit confused. Would this thing scroll the whole overflow? No, it can't. So this cursor is not the display cursor, right? No. But then how do we even do that? How did I feel this was going to work? Well, this is concerning. Whoops. I need to be in streamer mode. Interesting. Anyway, streamer mode enabled. There we go. Sorry. Right. I'm trying to control my viewers, right? I'm trying to control my viewers so there's like a button that makes viewers subscribe. And I figure since they don't do that automatically for some unknown reason, I figure we need a control panel for this that we can just push. Alright. Now I want to be able to do things that are a little bit more interesting. 990 Pro. Do I look like a peasant to you? These are 1990 Pro. God damn it. All right. Have some class. First of all, I'm kidding. I've never listened to the 990. I have no idea if they're good or not, right? I bought these ridiculously expensive headphones on my last liquidity, right? I am that and everything else, right? Yeah, I think the thing is I am not an audiophile, so I don't know the difference. If I heard them side by side, maybe, but I don't know, right? I'm feeling inadequate and sad. No. Where's my quote? Damn it. There we go. Oh, hang on. New quotes don't get uppercase names, right? Yes, they do. Okay. Did I fix that? Yes. They didn't used to have uppercase names. Yes, they did. No, they didn't. That's what it is. All right. Roland Phantom 08. What is that one like? Are these weighted keys? And what's the keyboard in there, right? What's the synthesizer in this thing, right? What do we got? No idea what that means. Supernatural piano engines, but I mean, if that's good, then yeah, that's nice, right? Weighted keys, oh yeah, with hammer action, nice. Okay, I mean, like this is like the most important thing to me. That and a good piano sound. Everything else is just like, right? Oh yeah, I mean, you need at least a sustain, right? I'd imagine that it comes with a sustain. Does it not come with a sustain? An 8 and an 08? Really? Okay. What's the difference here? Holy shit, man. Is this your first keyboard? Do you know how to play? I'm just asking, okay? I thought mine was expensive, but damn, son. Doesn't say anything. You've been playing for 16 years. Goodness grief. Why don't you do any like music streams and stuff, man? In that case, by all means, right? Like, I'd say if you have more money than sense, then do whatever, right? But if you're new to something, then you should definitely not go for the most expensive model, right? But if you've been doing something for many years, then by all means, right? Makes more sense. Not that anyone should care what I think about what they do. Studio One license? I don't even know what that is. Okay, so we were doing this, right? Let's see if we can translate. I just don't know how this is gonna work, right? I need to look at the template for this, for the editor. Is it because we place it here? No, we don't place it inside the expand. Wait, that is the state screen cursor. I thought we didn't have that. Oh shit. When we do update, we set, so the state has the screen cursor and the buffer cursor. Oh really? Really? So what do we do with the buff cursor then, right? We don't. So that one is superfluous. Okay, so we need a screen cursor. That makes so much more sense. That makes so much more sense. Okay, so the state's gonna have a screen cursor. And we're gonna have an update cursor that takes a screen cursor. Which is a you know what? A U size. We don't need a U size for that. That is completely superfluous. Do we use a U size for this? No, an I32. Because they can have negative values, but they're not really. Let's see if we can make do with just a U16 here, alright? Let's save some of that sweet, sweet space. Not that it matters in this case, right? Yeah, I don't know what keyboard I have. It's in another room. Well, I have a few. I have a small, like, one of those, like, really small M audio keyboards as well for when you, so when I would, like, travel and... Oh, I love that, don't you? Okay. Right, hang on. I don't want to restart Firefox. Let's do a systems update instead. Let's update the kernel instead of dealing with that bullshit. Anyway, yeah. All right. Hello, Tempe. How you doing, buddy? This is. Do we want to update Asprite? Yeah. We need to draw an icon for Anathema at some point, as well, right? That's muy importante, no? Okay, so update the cursor, self.screen cursor set. Screen cursor. Then we don't. I don't think we need to do anything else. Now these are gonna be wrong. So all of this has to happen from somewhere else, right? Rain is nice. It does not, Caleb, but I did think about drawing like a pixel art bunny in like a terminal application. And then we just make one of the test or demo programs, just draw that picture in the terminal, right? Okay, so let's see. Since we're copying what we did here, let's see what we do in the state, right? We have updating the cursor, ensuring rows and columns. Don't need to worry about that. Don't need to worry about that. Don't need to worry about that. So everything actually happens out of the state. It all happens in here, right? So we just have insert character, update and remove character. We're gonna have the insert character. It's just not gonna live here anymore, right? And remove character. We move these out of here, and the same with move cursor. Then we can do that for home and end. We can even have take text be on the component instead. So the state is now what a state should be, just the data, and all the logic is on the component. I don't know why that's so obvious when I say it out loud now. Probably because I didn't want any fields on the state, but all right. So we need to have cursor position here. That's just going to be a U size because that's obviously easier to work with. Actually, it would be an I32 because we want to be able to go into negative spaces and stuff with this, which means we might change that on the state up there somewhere, right? Okay. So we have our own. This cursor will reflect where we are in the text, so that one will be easy enough, right? Am I using some kind of noise cancelling for what? For my headphones or for the stream or? No, I'm not using any noise cancelling for the stream. I don't know if I can play this music on stream. So I've stopped doing that because I stream to YouTube as well. So it becomes a little bit complicated. Okay. Oh, sorry. So that's going to be self cursor is state.text ref car count, right? That's what we're going to do. We could just ask the state for like car count. That would be an increasingly simpler thing to do. I usually use proc macro if you can't share data structures derived from the macro definition create. Why does it have this indirection? Because the create is compiled before everything else, right? So this is why proc macros have to be in a separate crate, yeah? It is very annoying that it is like that. I don't know what's going to happen when we get macros 2.0. I don't know how far we are from macros 2.0. No, it's declarative, so nothing will happen with the procedural macros there. Yeah, it is inconvenient. Absolutely. I am using Epidemic Sound for my sound effects and stuff, but right now I'm listening to Spotify, which doesn't necessarily have just... and I'm listening to music that I think a lot of people aren't really into. There's a lot of metal and stuff. So I think that's kind of it's a bit of an acquired taste, right? Max hi-fi.
Maximum hi-fi.
Maximum high five, though, right? Is it rusty metal? I mean, clearly. It does, but I don't think viewers and metal always goes hand in hand. So if you don't like ambient music, you can still probably put up with it. If you don't like pop music, you can probably ignore it. But music like metal or jazz or maybe classical music even is really hard to ignore because the music is so present. There are such violent notes in there and some of it is quite aggressive, so it's difficult to ignore that. I think elevator music and things like that, you can just go like, whatever, it's just background noise. But some music is very intrusive, right? Well, the things that has a great longevity when it comes to technology is cameras and music gear, right? Cameras don't depreciate in value the same way a computer does. A 5-year-old camera might not have lost that much in terms of price compared to a 5-year-old computer. Same thing with music gear. If you buy a good keyboard today, if you bought a good keyboard 15 years ago, that keyboard's still going to be good today, right? Because they're not built for obsolescence like your mobile phone is, right? Acid Fusion Post-Folk. All right, so here we just want state.car count. And that's going to be state text push. And then cursor bump by 1. Otherwise, we're going to insert at the cursor position. Now we have to update the cursor. And I think we had like a common function for doing that from the editor. No, we just call update cursor position. No, we do. We have update cursor and that will call that on the state. So we need to have an update cursor position here as well. So let's make a function called update cursor. Update cursor. So we will do that. And then that will be display cursor will equal to whatever. And then state.update cursor. Display cursor. Like that. You don't have to buy an expensive vinyl player though, right? The reason people listen to vinyl is for that like sound. There is actually there is an article about how the conversion to CD actually did lose a little bit of quality and why there's some addition to vinyl, right? But saying all that, if you don't have the ear for it, it is completely meaningless, right? How CDs lost quality when moving from vinyl. I wonder if there is, if I can find the... I don't remember what it was. Oh, I wish I could find that article, but there was an actual issue about that, right? But again, I don't have the ears, right? Acoustic warmth, maybe that's it, but I don't know, right? I have vinyl contains too few tracks for me to care. Vinyl and CD, I don't miss them, right? I can queue up a playlist of 100 songs and just vibe for hours, right? My brother had a CD changer, but bar that, right? It's not for me. I think hi-fi equipment looks nice if you have it properly set up in your living room, maybe. But other than that, you know. Okay. So we're gonna create an offset here. We might as well just copy that from this one, right? So we're gonna take our cursor and get the offset from overflow. That's what we can do, right? That's on here, right? Overflow is a reference to overflow. We don't need a mutable reference. So offset is going to be overflow.offset. Now this should return a position, and we're only interested in the X value here, right? So the display cursor is going to be self.cursor minus or plus 1. I think we have it here, right? There we go, right? Display cursor plus 1 minus the width, the offset. It says width, but I'm guessing that's the offset, right? No, that's when we create this offset. So the cursor is just going to be the cursor minus. Okay, so no 1 there. And then if the display cursor... Are you an I32? Yes. If the display cursor is less than 0, then we have to deal. And if display cursor, scroll the viewport that number of cells to the left and set the cursor, then display cursor is now 0. We make you mutable. And we'll take the overflow and scroll left by, or is it scroll by maybe? We don't need you for now. You'll be there later. Display cursor, right? Yeah, but I'm gonna put audio in the same camp as I do coffee and wine and things like that, right? Maybe not wine. Wine is very distinct, but when it comes to techniques around it, I think most people won't be able to tell a difference. Maybe with a good pair of headphones, and you could like just switch between vinyl and CD and you listen to it, maybe you would hear a sound difference then. But I think most people don't hear a difference, right? When it comes to these things, I think you can have this as a hobby and really want to tweak and min-max and optimize and hyper optimize your audio setup, and that's your hobby, and like go for it, right? That's fine. But I think when you talk about this with average people, claiming that something is way better than something else, I think that is a little bit, falling on deaf ears. Yeah, all pun intended, right? Because it's like most people can't hear that, right? And the older you get, the worse your hearing gets. So I don't think that you're gonna be in your 60s or 70s and get as much out of your really expensive headphones as you would, say, 40, 50 years ago, right? All right, so scroll by and then set to 0. If the display cursor X value larger than the element width. So we need to get the width for this thing. Do we have the width in here when we do this? Yeah, we pass the size as well. So let's pass the width in for this as well, right? I think there's a U32, but maybe we pass it as an I32. If the display cursor is larger than the width. Now, is that... So we create an offset, and then we scroll by the offset, and then we set the screen cursor as a result of that. So we get an offset, and then we scroll the offset. That's what we do. And then we do overflow, scroll by offset. But that is incorrect what I wrote there. So it's going to be the width, so +1 minus width. And that is the offset. And then we just have to update the cursor to be the width -1. Okay, so screen cursor is equal to the width -1. That makes sense, right? We have cochlear implants, but they are by no means an improvement on your actual hearing. We need to be able to transmit the audio to the brain, circumventing the vibration of the eardrum, right? We need like a digital input into the brain for audio, right? Yeah, I say we circumvent that, right? We just convert those signals that your eardrum would generate to your brain. We convert those signals directly to brain signals, right? But then we need better resolution for that, right? I wonder what the resolution is for audio signal, right? All of a sudden we need a new file format because MP3 doesn't work anymore, right? Because we'll be able to increase the the quality, right? No, the Elon chip, the Neuralink is a one-way thing, and it should stay a one-way thing for obvious reasons, right? You don't want to promote products by an insane person that's gonna have some kind of impact into your brain as opposed to out of your brain, right? That's just a horrifying thought. What Zoom do you mean? Like the H4n stuff, or? Gamer movie kind of thing? I don't understand the reference. F4 and U44. All right, cool. Yeah, I bought a Zoom H4n for my wife when she was doing audio stuff. One of these. I still have this, and I used this before I got the Rode mics. I just had the lapel mic plugged in. The back side of this thing has, there you go, right? Has a mic input. That's not the mic input. That's the mic input. That's for a stand, right? This thing is a bit dated. You can see that from the USB micro, but it still works fine. I still have it. One of the microphones is cracked, but you can adjust these for how they should capture 90 degrees or 120 degree capture. So that's kind of cool. But again, something has happened to this thing, so it's become a little bit bent. But I used this one with the lapel mic when I was recording. And the worst part of this, what batteries do we have in there? Rechargeable batteries, excellent. So the worst part with this was that I had to have it in my pocket when I was recording. And the only way to prevent the microphone cable, which comes out of there, from being caught on my back pocket was to have this thing on so it got stopped there. So I basically had this thing like this in my back pocket to protect the microphone cable. It was really inconvenient. I'm not seeing that in black. But this one is really nice. Still works well. Many years later. No issues there. I think it's great. Not sure why this one has a USB-B cable. That looks a little bit dodgy, I have to say, because there's no USB-B cable for this. It's hard to see. Is this one different? No. So why are they showing a USB-B cable in there? You know what? Who cares? Let's move on. So inserting a character means that we're just gonna do this. So we look at the cursor. As a user. We do that as an i32 instead. USB-C to USB-B. I don't know when that would be handy. Is there a USB-C to USB-B? All right, so we're going to push the character and move the cursor forward. I think I would like, so after speaking with Alan on Discord, I would like to try a Shure SMB7. I was avoiding it for the longest of times because I didn't want to have the same sound as everyone else, but everyone has this microphone as well, right? So now I really want to try it. I see. That is state and then insert. There we go. Okay, we got 46 errors. There's no way this is going wrong. Hello, Phil. How you doing? Patwin, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the resub, Patwin. My control panel is working. Craft sent. I'd be interested in like the hardware tracker. This one looks really fun. This, because I grew up with tracker music. Things like Fast Tracker 2, and even the predecessor stuff on the Amiga as well. So this is what I grew up with when it came to making music. This, and obviously like we had MIDI and stuff, but for MIDI back then, this was like a good alternative, because for MIDI back then you needed really expensive synthesizers to route your MIDI data through to get a good sound, right? Whereas with Fast Tracker, you could just embed the samples into the music. However, the samples would obviously be a lot lower quality, but it was still cool though, right? Make one in Rust. I have thought about making one in the terminal, but honestly, I don't remember how they work anymore. I don't even know if I could. It's a cool concept though. Okay, so updating the cursor. We need to call update cursor here. And what do we need to call update cursor? We need the state. We need the overflow, which we need to get for this to work. Actually, we can do this elsewhere. And then I think we need the width as well, don't we? Yeah, and then the width. So where do we call insert character? Right here. We don't need this anymore. So we're just going to do that. And then we just call self.cursor position, right? Whenever we make this change. So that's going to be update all of this. It's very dramatic music. I had to turn that off. It's getting difficult to focus. That's the ticket, Pill. You can't do anything. Okay, so we're just going to call self insert character. But we need to pass a state in. Did we really do that up here? Update, apply instruction. Yeah, we did. So we don't actually do that from the state. That one is separate. Insert car. And then update the cursor. So we need to get the overflow. So all this has to happen from within this function, right? to overflow like this. And we don't do any of that in here. Although I don't see myself having done that, but apparently I have. It's literally what we have here, and then we just match on the instruction. Which is not what we're doing here, because we're doing different things, but still. Here we're matching on key code instead. We will VMT eventually. It'll be fine. Is the width supposed to be an I32? Yeah, it is. Okay, so we have what we need for this now. We're down to 39 arrows. Beautiful. This is probably going to be the width, isn't it? Screen cursors of cursor minus overflow offset. Like that. Okay. So display cursor is 0. Do that. If the display cursor is light in the width, then this. Why is this thing griping? Screen cursor. Oh, that's why. Whoops. What? Okay, fine. Then this would have the same issue. Akai has done some really cool controllers. And if we look at the small ones, I considered when I was doing a lot of photo post-processing to buy one of these for just to have the I have something like this. Is it an Akai I have? No, I have an M Audio version of this, which is a lot cheaper, and that was like my portable thing. But they have really small MIDI controllers that I thought about buying for these are all keyboards. For like these things, right? For use with Darktable and stuff. It doesn't really support MIDI. So I was working on, it was one of my first Rust programs, was working on something that would translate MIDI signals to keyboard input. So what I had at one point was MIDI over the network because I was doing other things with it. That's not really an achievement because someone's already written a crate where you can get MIDI access to things. So having these like dials and knobs to tweak things like brightness, saturation, and contrast is really, really useful, right? Being able to look at something while you're tuning it. But they had one which was probably more like this, right? Something pretty small that you can just read the MIDI input from. They have some really cool, tiny little controllers that would be suitable for that. You could probably do the same thing with video editing, but I don't think DaVinci Resolve MIDI controller for color grading, right? Maybe that would be cool. That's really cool because the controllers that you use for things like DaVinci and these things, they are really expensive, and they basically do the same thing, right? Like a loop deck. So this is probably one of those really expensive ones, right? Let's have a look at this thing. There's a name for them. I don't remember what the name is, but yeah, this probably cost a few £100, right? It's not gonna be cheap. Is this thing compatible with Linux? I'm asking for a friend. This is not interesting to me. This would be cool, right? But again, it's a little bit. We're not really in a position to buy anything fancy like that now. Gotta be sensible for the foreseeable 10 years, thanks to this stupid toilet. Okay, let's just fix these things. Okay, so it's not scroll by then. And then the overflow definitely have to be mutable if we're gonna do that. Scroll forward, scroll up, down, left, right. Which again, scrolling left and scrolling right is just backwards and forwards, right? So I guess what we would do is just do scroll right or left for this. I think in the original code we scroll up and down, up by and down by. So left by and right by. Actually, it's the other way around. Scroll left by and scroll right by. And then the display cursor is an i32. Okay, so we're gonna make you into an i32 then. Although I don't know if we want that to be possible to be negative in the display. Very good, Perkins. No car count? Oh, car count, not cars count. Here in my cars. That would be as you size. That is gonna be state.car count, right? I'm happy you're still doing Rust and Perkins if you are. No. Yes. The derive macro is built using syn and quote. How many cars do you have in your garage? 0 cars in my garage. My garage. Cursor. Curse is cursor. Is my car running out? I don't have a car. I don't believe in cars. I wish I had a car. Shut up. Okay, if the cursor position, then... Wait, what? Yeah, we subtract 1 there. That could be an i32. Wait, is this right? Hello, GB. Yeah, we really need to fix the name colors, don't we? We need a oh, we could use a we could try an AI result here. Hang on. We can use duck.ai here, and we can say, show me some pseudo code that will brighten colors that are so we need to comparing the color to an almost black value. If the color is within a certain threshold, then brighten the color. Let's see if this thing will work. Okay, but we need to figure out how to calculate the threshold, right? Okay, I forgot to start with that, right? Okay, so here we're just adding a given factor. This is kind of a naive implementation. Okay, so I wonder if this is right, because this will treat the color just like a grayscale, right? This looks like it works mostly with grayscales. However, certain shades of blue are harder to see than, say, red. You are correct. I'm so freaking tired of that statement. Can I get the luminance of the color using red? Okay, this is more like it, right? So luminance. Check if the luminance is below the threshold. If it is below the threshold, then we do this thing, right? So it's all about the luminance here, right? Okay, this looks better than what we had before. No, you are correct, my man. All right, we just burned half a rainforest for saying that. All right. Yes, Perkins. There is something called real-time Linux for audio. So if you're interested in that, then there are certain Linux dists. I don't know. Maybe this one has something. It's about real-time. Ubuntu Studio, Fedora Jam, Arch Linux with low latency kernel. What's the low latency kernel here, right? So there are, anyway, you can explore this space, but there are like real-time, I think they're real-time labeled as like real-time distros for the audio stuff, right? Okay, I'm interested in this in this algorithm here, right? So then we have to sense the RGB values are arrays of bytes. Translate these to floats as well in the pseudocode. Jack and pipe wire are fine, right? All right, we have to cast these, but I think honestly, I think this could work, right? We'll come back to that, but this is the part of AI that I like, right? No cursor position. No, that's fine. Update cursor. What do we do for that? We need state of. Okay, but hang on. Move cursor. Should we call update cursor afterwards, right? So then self to update cursor after we move it. Home and end both needs to do that. Home. Yeah, that seems silly to do, right? So let's get rid of home and just set the cursor to 0 there. And when we call update the cursor, we obviously need to pass in all this other jazz here. And then the home and end. Yeah. Take text, that will set the cursor to 0. Let's do that one in the instruction instead. Update the cursor, which should now automatically do all the scrolling and everything. We don't need that. And then we do this part. I think we're good now. Do we not have an insert car here? Yeah, we need to pass in the state though, right? Yeah, there are a lot of Rust audio projects, right? Let's find out. So let's ask a new question, right? Show me a pseudocode function for translating RGB bytes into for increasing the brightness of RGB bytes using luminance, and explain this using Sumer slang. Make sure to convert the bytes to float skibbity. Here's a pseudocode function to increase the brightness of RGB bytes using luminance, along with explanation in a fun Sumer slang. Why does every output from LLMs always sound like some kind of Sunday school teacher, right? It's always like, it's a fun thing, right? It's like, shut up, man. This is like the language of LLMs are that of trying to please everyone, meaning they please no one, right? Alright, fam, let's break it down. So you got your RGB colors chilling in byte form. I am literally dying from cringe on the inside now, but I'll keep reading. We're gonna level them up by boosting the brightness, and we're gonna do it using some lit luminance vibes. It's a little bit like when some kind of recovering drug addict comes to speak in front of a group of like disenfranchised children. Okay. First off, we take those RGB bytes and turn them into float numbers. This is like flexing your RGBs into the big leagues. You feel? This hurts, man. Exactly. You did this to yourself. I did. This was it is painful, right? It is really painful to see this, right? Okay, let's do this then, right? Let's go with what people really want, okay? Using quite direct and mildly offensive language. I'll keep it straightforward and to the point. Where's the offensive part? All right, listen up. But that is offensive. This is how it should talk to you, right? Okay, let me do one more thing, right? Let me do one more thing. Let me show you what should be the default for LLM's language, right? Direct and mildly offensive language. Also, make sure the reader knows that they can't figure this out without the help of an LLM because they are too lazy to look anything up these days. There you go. But I won't use offensive language. What? Come on, man. It's like it's a self-realization thing, right? If you think you could have figured this out on your own, think again. No, that's not what I said. It's about being too lazy. Okay, there you go. Most people would rather scroll through social media than do a bit of research. So here you go. No need to lift a finger beyond reading this. This is how it should be, okay? It should give you the answer, but remind you that you are a lazy sausage, okay? Convert RGB to luminance. All right, I reckon we can get a simple-ish formula for this, right? There you go. Actually, this is not the numbers that we got from Ducky, by the way. Ducky gave us different numbers. Where's the luminance value? 299,587,144. It is not the same. However, let's be. There it is, right? Slower to calculate, okay? But this is using square root. Was this using square root? There's no squirt in here, so I don't know. But either way, it's not really that difficult to look it up, is it? So 709, that probably means a lot to you, those of you who don't do anything with video. Or colors. The accepted answer is incorrect and incomplete. Oh man, here's the Stack Overflow that we love and cherish. It's a correct and complete answer. But to be clear, no one is going to read this because the previous answer is higher up, has pictures and less text. So people won't read this. I will read this though, but not now. These are also not the same values, but I think it depends on the color space, right? Damn guardrails, right? Right? It's all good. You know what? I like this. I like that ChatGPT can give us a short answer that we can try. And if it works, that would be fine, even if it's not correct, because what we're doing is just making GB and Perkins' name more readable in the terminal. That's all we would do. If it's heinously wrong and doesn't work, then we would have to continue the rabbit hole, and that would lead us to finding these articles anyway, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with using ChatGPT, right? Okay, so this one wants a U size and found an I32. So let's make this thing into an insert function that takes an I32 here and changes that as a U32, right? We do the same thing here. U size, not U32. Oh my goodness. There we go, right? So then that just works by changing that to what it was supposed to be. I do feel like sneezing. And I don't want to use a darker background, but I like this background, Dan. I like this background, Dan. Is that even your real name, Zero Dan 1? Do you pronounce the underscore? No field display cursor on input state. Why would I care about that? We would use self dot cursor. Ah! Dot cursor. Hang on, I gotta open Slack here. I'm waiting for a message from someone. Joop. There we go. Okay, there's no ref needed there. Oh, we do want that. The undercover name. Oh no. We don't have to do that anymore, do we? Do we even need this direction thing anymore? This thing can't fail. Like that. Is this some kind of weird take on Fairy Fountain? Okay. Right. Do we move the cursor when we do a backspace? We should, shouldn't we? We remove and then we move the cursor. When we delete, we don't do that. Don't we have take text on the state? I thought we did. Huslanish. We could just do this. And then here, to move that left, we have to say if self.cursor is larger than 0. And then all we do is update the cursor as a result of this. And then here, if we're moving right, we need to update the cursor. Moving right. If state.car_count is less than or equal to self.cursor, but si32. Okay, we're almost there. Me or VMT intricate? Mismatched types? What? Expected a unit, found an option of a unit. Alright, we need a semicolon here. Okay, shoot. What can I do for? No, we already have that. And we don't do no overflow here. Who didn't? Could you save, please? There we go. All right, let's look through this briefly to make sure that it makes sense. Insert a character where the cursor is. Either insert or push. That makes sense. Then we update the cursor, which again should be fine. And then publish a change. Remove the current one where the cursor is on backspace. Move the cursor one step back. Update the cursor. Publish a removal. Delete. Remove a cursor at the current position. This should only work if the text is over, like if it's not empty. Okay. Remove that and then publish a change. If we press enter, then we're going to take the text, which means we reset the text, we update our cursor, and this will go to the state and update the cursor on the state, which will just update this thing here. So that's easy enough. You can probably get rid of that function. Publish. Move cursor left, right, home, and end. Okay, so when do we not update the cursor? So we could probably take all the cursor updates or the non-cursor updates and just return. No, we update the cursor there. There's one, not here. Here's where we return. And here's one. Okay, so we basically update the cursor in every function except the delete one. So let's get rid of update cursor there, 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 there. I'm just doing this to see how many we're getting rid of there, right? And then update the cursor. Nice. Apologies for what, Skylar? What am I missing? Oh, sorry, I didn't even see the TB post fix there, right? Yeah, go for it, Intricate. What do you need? I got all the time in the world. Because my clothes have gone missing. I asked my wife this morning, like, do you really hate what I'm wearing? Because I bought a bunch of really cheap clothes. Because they were like, they're like £3 for a top. And she goes, no. And I said, why do you keep hiding them or throwing them away? Because I thought the best thing to do when you can't find your clothes is to accuse your wife of having disposed of them. Now, naturally, she doesn't take me seriously ever. So it was not an issue. But I don't know where I've misplaced my tops, right? Yeah, that's about it, Intricate. That really, really is it, right? Yes. So, okay. Everything's sequential. Yeah, but no, but yeah, but no. All right. Let's say that you're making an asteroid game, right? Then your game loop so you can have nested things in there, right? So you will have a loop that will do something like read input, move ship, check collision, calculate score, and that's it, right? And then maybe as a result of this thing, it might lead to a death scene or whatever, right? But that's kind of it, right? You read the input, you move the ship, you check if it's colliding with something or if the bullets are colliding with something, calculate any score you might have acquired, and start again, right? What's Palazzo? What about stuff that moves around the user without inputs? Okay. Move NPCs or enemies, right? In this case. Now, reading the input doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get an input, right? Draw to screen, Skylar. You kids and your modern, oh, I got graphics. Oh, you are so spoiled, right? Yes, you would have a graphics context. Maybe you have a struct called game, and then you have a score here. You have enemies, which is a vec of enemy, right? You have ship position, which is a position, and then you have something like input map, which is an input. And you would just pass in like this, right? You pass in the game to all of these things so they can modify score and all that stuff, right? And then here you draw all the things and then you start again, right? And maybe there's at some point you might be, this might be like your main loop, right? Main loop. And then you have the actual game loop, the underlying game loop, which will run. So if game is running, all right, so this is a loop. If game is running, then run the main loop, right? Until this thing breaks, right? If ship is no longer alive, then break. So if the game is running, then we run the main loop. You're gonna have the game thing here as well, maybe, right? You pass that in here. You get what I mean, right? So you have different loops, but the essence of it is, yes, it's just a straightforward loop. It does not have to be complicated, right? the speed of everything is balking your mind. Do you know how quickly a computer can add two numbers together? It's insane. When it comes to the graphic stuff, then that's happening on the GPU, which can run a program for every pixel on your screen. How insane is that, right? So what's my screen resolution? If I could spell, I would know, right? So this, okay, apparently I can't copy and paste like a normal person. I wish I could, but this is the number of shaders of programs the CPU has to run for every frame, for every pixel on the screen. That is 8,294,400 program executions, right? Unless you software render, yeah, but that's just gonna affect your frame rate. That is mind-boggling, right? 8.3 million programs per frame. And you're running this in some instances like 144 frames per second, right? Yeah, I have a lot of 4K monitors, right? I'm sitting, it looks like a cockpit around here. So let's say that we're doing this. If we're doing this 60 times per second, 60 times per second. Can you count, right? That is 0.016th of a second. If we're doing this at 144, that's 0.007 times 7/7 of a second, right? That's like 7 milliseconds. You have 7 milliseconds to run 8.3 million programs, right? Yeah, it's mind-boggling, right? Where do you store your roosters though, right? If you don't have a pit that you store them in, right? You can obviously scale your DPI, Marvin. You don't have to reduce the resolution, but to each their own. I think it runs them for a quarter pixel too, so it's actually 4 times your resolution. Yeah, I mean, like you have, I'm just talking about the fragment shader now. I'm not talking about the vertex shader or any other shader that's on the GPU, right? So let's just talk about the fragment shader, right? That is 7 milliseconds to run 8.3 million programs, right? So if we do 8.294400 divided by 7, or rather it would be 7 divided by that is of the fraction of a millisecond that you are given per program, right? So if we take this milliseconds in microseconds, right? It's not even, okay, we have to go into nanoseconds, right? It's 0.8 nanoseconds per program. Is that right? Is my math right here? If my math is right, that's less than 1 nanosecond per, that's less than 1 nanosecond per program. And that is roughly the amount of time it took for you to disappoint someone, right? I'm using Fend. And Fend is really, really good, right? Fend can tell you lots of really interesting things, right? You can say how many 10 milliseconds in nanoseconds, right? 100 USD in pounds, right? It can tell you 10 miles in kilometers, right? It's a currency unit conversion that can do maths as well, right? X is 100, X as in milliseconds. No, in X milliseconds in nanoseconds, right? So it's really, really good, right? Yes, right. So that is a good point, right? Okay. What's this noise then? They are. So when VMT says they're massively SIMD, what VMT is trying to tell you using no, the programs execute at the same time, not sequentially. So you're not given a buffer of time units that you execute a program after program. You're executing like thousands of programs in one go, right? So that makes sense. So the question is, how many fragment shaders can a GPU execute simultaneously? Up to 24. I don't know if that's still correct. Single instruction, multiple data, 16 shaded crossings of 5 ALUs, which would be arithmetic logic units, right? I don't know what VLI W5 architecture is, so there's 800 arithmetic logic units that can do parallel computation. So I don't know, right? I don't know, but it is not. It can parallelize more than your CPU can do, which is not taking SIMD into consideration. Is limited to the number of cores you have, right? Yes, exactly that, right? That's what VMT was saying. Oh no, sorry, VMT. That's what runtime was saying. Get your shit together. Sorry. Anyway, CPU is fast. That is also a thing in Jakarta, right? I think when we talk about programming, it's very easy to get into the whole you shouldn't box something because it allocates it on the heap and allocations are slow and all that stuff, right? But if you think about things being slow in that fashion, then do you know how slow it is, right? If you have never been in a car in your entire life, you've never even seen a car, how can you reason about how fast it is to walk, run, ride a push bike, or take a car, right? Somewhere, right? It's just like, if you don't know what slow means, then how can you say that it's just slow, right? How slow is it to allocate on the heap, right? So next time you think I shouldn't allocate on a string or put something on the heap because it's slow, then just ignore that thing in your head. You can definitely allocate thousands of things on the heap and maybe not notice anything, right? So it really intricate. Your computer can do an insane amount of stuff in human perception of time, right? So what we perceive is slow. What is slow for a computer could be things like 10 nanoseconds, right? But I don't know how long. Neural signal, that's a weird weird thing, right? But look at this. This is insane. I was kind of hoping for something like, okay, on average, non-voluntary reflex, which has automatic information going to the central nervous system being processed and then going out to motor neurons, take about 0.3 seconds, right? That's 300 milliseconds for you to have an involuntary reaction, right, to something. Okay? We can blink in 100 milliseconds, right? So when you think that blinking is fast, that's an eternity for a computer, right? But is this in parallel, right? I do remember some time ago that someone mentioned that so this is like some time ago, that there was a GPU that could execute 1024 shaders simultaneously, right? Every FPS player can react in less than, but those are not involuntary reactions, right? But your reaction, your reaction is in the millisecond space, not the nanosecond space, which is the point that I was making, right? Okay, are we done? Is this working now? Probably not. Should we take it for a spin and see what this looks like now? We're gonna miss a lot, all right? Gonna miss a lot. But there's nothing that's fair here, though, Schmidt. Just know that. Fair does not exist in this space. Right. I started playing with the idea of having split video. So I mentioned this yesterday, and I mentioned this in the documentation, that one thing Anathema doesn't do well would be dynamic splits and stuff. But I think if we can have self-referential templates, recursive templates, which Skylar has been a proponent of for a long time, if we can have that, then we could possibly have splits. Maybe. I started playing with the idea yesterday, but I realized that a split cannot contain a split, which it has to if we want to make that work. But it could be a possibility, right? You do, but if you're writing a bytecode virtual machine, you are also probably familiar. If you're writing a bytecode virtual machine and you are optimizing for performance, you are probably aware of the allocations and stuff. But also, you would probably not allocate single units of memory either, right? You would allocate chunks of reusable pages of memory, right? Okay. Let's see. This is gonna break because we don't have a lot of things. I can't move the cursor. What does the input look like now? What do we even have here? Let's go to our input. Let's get you out of there. Let's go to input state. Where's the insert character? Single seamed execution lane. So 10,000 cores represents the capability to do 10,000 floating point 32 operations in a single cycle. All right, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, don't thank me. I didn't really supply that much information. This was more chats nerding out on this. Hello, Ford Falcon. How you doing? My wife can jump to conclusions faster than that, though. Yeah, but that's built-in behavior, right? They have like a dedicated conclusion CPU in, or the GCPU of the wife's brain, the general conclusion processing registry, right? Which already comes preloaded with instructions from birth. Did you put that there? A field programmable wife array. Malloc C is roughly 0.1 millisecond for me. That's if that is as slow as it is, right? Then you also know not to allocate for individual objects, right? As a matter of fact, one way of solving boxing, if you wanted to, would be to have dedicated boxing space if you know how much you're gonna box, right? But another way of doing that is just store the data as bytes somewhere. I don't know, right? No, the amount of memory allocate doesn't really matter, but it does matter, right? It can affect how long it takes to find a chunk of free memory, right? So if let's make some shit up here, right? If this is your memory, here, right? And you have chunks of memory here, and this is 10 bytes, or let's say that this is 50 bytes, 50 bytes, 50 bytes, right? And you're going to allocate, and then 50 bytes. You're going to allocate 100 bytes. You know that this thing is free, but it's only 50 bytes. You're going to check this thing. Can it fit your next allocation? No. So you have to go and check the next thing, right? And then maybe you free this guy, so you end up with, and this is a very naive approach. Can you allocate here? No. Can you allocate here? No, right? Again, very naive. I'm just saying that there are things that has to happen. The memory has to be found for you, and depending on the size, the harder it might be to find that memory, right? It depends on various factors, how much memory is allocated, is there a lot of memory fragmentation happening, and so on and so forth, right? It might not be, so when you're freeing 250 byte chunks next to each other, you could combine those to a total chunk of 100 bytes free, right? That can happen. But again, every allocator is somewhat different, right? It's not the same. The stack doesn't work like that at all, right? The stack, you just place things on top, right? The way you free memory of the stack, you can't free below in the stack. You can only free the current stack frame, which is decreasing the pointer, which often leads things in memory from the previous function call still there. It's never freed, it's just overwritten. There are some cases where it might be zeroed out, but and that would be to prevent some security issues maybe, but yeah. Just the start time. Go! Oh, done. Right. Page faulting. Yeah. It is. Where's my Twitch? Right here we go. Is it not Infinidraw, or do we not have a command for that? Not config commands, man. Really? No, it's the bot. Infiniboard, sorry. Let's do Infinidraw and then say you probably meant Infiniboard. Whoops. And then we could just do this, couldn't we? There we go. Yeah, it was made by Temporis, who's possibly lurking in stream somewhere. How much memory allocator does that matter? No, that would probably include that I was cleaning up the allocations too, right? Yes, but remember that the memory also that you're allocating looks like contiguous memory, but it's not. This is virtual memory supplied to you by the underlying boss of the operating system. Dr. Mr. Colonel. I don't know where I'm going with this. Shut up. Okay. Anyway. Why was I doing something and why was it wrong? Let's figure that out. So inserting our character should move the cursor, but it didn't. So let's do that. Self.cursor. Should it? Wait, don't we have an insert here? Yeah, insert car. What are you doing, man? Yeah, and that will move the cursor if needed. But why is that not working then? But that would happen once. Oh, I see. Okay. Right. Yeah, you can do this internally though, right? But here's the kicker, right? Here's the kicker. If we do something like this, for x in 10,000, right? Let's make a vec here on the heap, obviously, with 1024 allocations, and then we'll start the timer. I will tell you why this is wrong. You can chill out in chat. All right, I'll get there. Okay, so we're saying that this is how long it would take in debug mode to allocate 10,000 times 1024. However, when we cargo run this in release mode, the time's going to look a little bit different than what you had, Skylar. Actually, that is surprising. I would have thought that this would have been 0. Okay. All right. The reason I would have thought it would be 0 because I thought this would actually be optimized out and this would become a whole nothing burger. But surprisingly, it did, right? It did allocate. So it takes 60 nanoseconds to do pretty much nothing, right? I say pretty much nothing, but we're creating this time instant. So to allocate a kilobyte 10 times would take 280 nanoseconds, right? But we don't know how long it takes to free the memory. And we also don't know what optimizations are being done without looking at the assembly. And I'm not going to do that. So goodbye. Here's the kicker. But that is a more accurate way to get an inaccurate reading, right? If it wasn't assigned, it might have become a no-op and thrown away, right? Hello, Farah. How you doing? All day, every day. Not all day, and certainly not every day. I don't think LVM can optimize away malloc. Well, okay, but I will continue this ridiculous thing then, just for you guys, just to show that there are nuances to what we do, okay? Because this has nothing to do with optimizing away malloc or not, right? This is I'm showing you this to show you nuances of what is happening, right? Instant now, and then we say for I or for whatever in 0 to 10,000. Value is a vec of 1. We get a kilobyte of that, and then time is now elapsed, and then we're gonna print out the time like that. Okay, so let's run this in debug mode. 32 milliseconds. Cool. Let's run this in release mode. Okay, 66 microseconds. So Caleb's question was, if you get rid of the assignment, does it go away? I don't know. Let's find out. It does not go away. It's still there. However, now we get something very different, okay? Because Rust is pretty clever, right? What is this called? We're just talking about time to do allocations and stuff, right? But we got it down to 50 nanoseconds. What is this arcane magic? That's because we're using a zero size type, right? If I use a zero size type, which is not going to work because this thing has to implement copy and clone for that to be a thing, right? 51 nanoseconds, right? Because we don't actually store in the data in there. So when this thing is created, it could just be a counter, right? The underlying vector doesn't actually have to allocate anything on the heap. We could, all this data is on the stack, right? There's nothing on the heap because of this, right? The moment we change this to, we can use U16, right? The moment we change this, we get very different numbers. Actually, that was surprisingly good. 681 nanoseconds. No, it was no better than what we had before. Yeah, microseconds. Wow, okay. That's interesting. But, I mean, that just goes to show, right? Goes to show what? It depends on what you store in there and what you're doing with it, right? So, the long and short of this, you should probably not worry about it, right? Yeah. Only 5,000 cat images? That's pretty weak, I have to say. Right? I would have expected more from you. All right, back to this thing. So why is it not moving the cursor, right? Let's see what happens when we run this thing. But we're going to fix the input first, right? Well, I can probably figure out why, because I renamed things. So in our state, we only have a cursor now. So we have to look at the input ammo and just deal with that, right? So the position is going to be state cursor. Nothing else really matters in this case. The height is no longer required to be 5. We can leave it as 5 for no reason whatsoever. And the text is there. So let's see if this changes things then, right? Hello world. Okay, it didn't. This is not working. And then some. Okay, the scrolling there is working. And this is... Whoops, and an overflow. All right, let's get rid of you. Very weak source. Why is the cursor not moving? Okay, well, I guess we'll start with that. So the first thing happens is that we get an input character here. So we're going to insert a character. If the cursor is equal to car count is 0, then we're going to add 1 to self cursor. So self cursor is now 1. We go through this code and then we're just going to bumble all the way down here till we update the cursor. At this point, we're going to get the display cursor to be the self cursor minus any offset. We'll have 0 offset here, right? So this is going to be cursor. That should be 1 minus 0. If the cursor is less than 0, which it isn't. If it's larger than the width, which it shouldn't be, I guess a little bit of debuggery is in order here. So let's go and do that then. Let's find the input. Let's learn how to spell input. Let's go to definition. And let's put a breakpoint here and see where we end up when we do this. Okay. Display cursor, is it 1? It is 1. Okay, so we're going to call update. So we're setting the screen cursor to 1. Okay, sorry, it was called screen cursor. You boob. And what did I accidentally call it in the input ammo? Just cursor. Okay, cool. Okay, that might have been the issue. So the first one's fixed. This is now fine. We can even move it to the left. Can't move it to the right. This is also not right. When you do an insert, it should move the cursor, shouldn't it? This is fine. High. That's not right. Should it move the cursor? Yes. Yes, it should. So that needs to be fixed. What language do you use in this script? Like Python? That's cool. You're learning programming. It's nice. This is Rust. That's my finger that I sometimes bite on. And AML is the markup language. This is just a way to describe user inputs, nothing else. Okay, so the insert code is wrong. So we should always move the cursor after an insert. This is a test. This is now right. Okay. Hello world. Right. So when we hit enter, we don't really reset correctly. So let's fix that one now. We set the cursor to 0. Yeah, it will make sense. You can think of it like this, right? HTML is not a programming language, despite what nerds in chat might try to tell you. Right? HTML is a hypertext markup language. It's a way to describe a document, really. And that is what AML is. And they have languages like JavaScript and Python that basically performs logic on the CPU, right? You say, if this is true, then do that. And you have the program flow, right? The program instructions, right? So one is designed to describe the layout, and the other one is to perform the operations, right? I don't know if my mildly incorrect, slightly askewed explanation there made any sense, but yes. So whatever we put in here describes what an input field should look like. It lives inside a container that is at least 1 unit wide and is always 1 unit tall. There's a C stack, which means it stacks. You have vertical stacking, horizontal stacking, and then you have like overlapping stacking, which is the C stack, which is why this element is drawn and then this element is drawn on top of this element, which is how we can have the cursor be on top of the text, right? And then it's just various different kinds of widgets. This thing allows us to overflow past the size of the container, and this thing is placing the position of the cursor somewhere on the screen in relation to this. One thing that I haven't checked that I should probably check before we go any further is what happens. No, that is fine. Okay. Yeah, we're good. But there's something wrong when we update the cursor if character return is pressed. Self cursor becomes 0. So that becomes the value of the display cursor. I think a breakpoint might be in order here as well, right? So let's go to the enter thing here. So we do this, we set a breakpoint, then we type in this window, we type, hit enter. Then we're going to go to update cursor. So display cursor is now -2. We can't have -2. So we have to scroll the window left by 2. Okay. What is our current offset? It should be 2. It is 2. So it should set this to 0 now. No. It is 4. That is very wrong. That's why. Oh, and then backspace was panicking. So let's try that again. Cannot remove a character from the end of a string. That makes sense. So let's look at the logic for backspace. So effectively, I'm making an input field so we can have text inputs. There's hopefully more people will add widgets to these things. And we can build up the widgets over time. Have like a catalog of widgets that we can use. All right, so backspace, where are you? So we're going to move the cursor by 1, we're removing the preceding cursor, the preceding value, right? So that was just in the wrong order. Yes. Okay. But what happens when we get here with the cursor, right? This is the cursor. Yeah, so the cursor is allowed to go outside of the window and then it jolts back. That's just wrong. So that's the only thing that's missing from our input field now. And then we can actually go and build what I was supposed to build yesterday. So is this in the update cursor code? If the display cursor is larger than the width, or is it the, where does this come in? All right, let's do this. Debugging saves everything. Right, so we've already gone too far here. Okay. Can we fix this by just doing that? Yeah, we can. What an easy fix that was. Right, we got ourselves a... okay, let's fill the first one with just 1s. And then we start doing 2s here. So can we then scroll to the left into the 1s? We can. But we can't scroll right. Scrolling right is wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Okay, quit. Quit. All right. Okay, so left works, but right does not. If the number of characters are less than the cursor. And we're better at Rust than CC++. Yes, by a long shot, right? But that doesn't mean anything, of course, right? Hello, Privis. How you doing, buddy? Good, good. Building AI. Nice. So if the character count is larger than the cursor or equal to, all right, we're done. We got an input field. Woo! Cleaning this up. Whoops. Hello, Tanak. Okay, so we haven't tried the home and end. I don't know if I have these buttons on my keyboard, so I'm going to go and add them temporarily. So I can try this. We'll make you home. Where's the home button? And we'll make you the end button. Right. So let's run this again. Here is some text. It doesn't work. That's home. Yeah, I know. Home and end. Why are you not working? Okay. Let's see. That might be down to the terminal, right? Oh yeah, this keyboard is mind-blowingly amazing. This is the keyboard. Okay, hey, it works. Yeah, it's because we were in the terminal, right? That is done. All right, now I don't need those buttons anymore. So we're gonna say no key and no key. I don't like that color on the keyboard though, so we're gonna get the blue in there instead. Which blue was it? This one? No, it's the lighter blue. There we go. Bam. It's a very cool keyboard. Okay. Oh, wait. You know what? I can tell you about this keyboard. Yeah, I don't think you should look at Logitech for that. I think the thing that comes to mind competitively might be Vile or what is it that Moonlander is ZSA is using, right? So I think Vile keyboard might be the competitive interface, nowhere near as good considering what we can actually do here. By the way, there was just an update to this keyboard, so if you have this keyboard, you could update the firmware now. I show this off, and I have the Energy set it up now, but I can swap the keyboard to connect to my phone now with a button push, and then it takes like 1 or 2 seconds. Then any typing I do goes to my phone, another button push, and is back to the computer, right? So connected to the phone via Bluetooth and to the computer via keyboard, and just a button to toggle this. So if I ever have to write a long message on my phone, that's really convenient to do, right? And that's really nice. So if you do programming on your phone or whatever, right? That's really, really cool. Yeah, I hate texting on phone. Luckily, these days, most messages I get are from the wife, and the reply is usually one of the like ready-made ones saying, okay, cool, let's do it, or please no, oh my God, no, right? You can change the keys how you see fit. You can change the color. You can change the color around the keyboard as well. I'll show you the keyboard. So now it's yellow. So if I wanted to change like the side here into some other color, we could just make it red, going down here, and then save changes. Bam, it's red now. Where is the red? There you go. You can see that it's red. But I like it to be yellow. I haven't had it, it was a recent thing. I had the kind of like neon colors in the past. It's instant to update. The macro editor is pretty cool. I have a single button for typing Neovim and enter, right? There you go. All right, so one button. This button on the other half of the keyboard. Whoops, I held down that one, right? That button on the other half of the keyboard just does Neovim and hits enter, right? It's pretty ridiculous, but I love it. You got super keys. I don't really use super keys, but all backspace and delete, but I stopped using that one. So let's get rid of that one. Yeah, so I moved delete there. It's got plenty of thumb clusters. It's got different colors for different layers, right? So that is now my media layer. The E and the R button, which are yellow, those are for next and previous song. The F button is for stop, right? I have on the other keyboard, I have, well, I can show them here instead, right? So these are the keys, curly brackets and square brackets that I have for programming. It has built-in tenting as well, right? If you get it with that option, it's built-in tenting. For programming, I have curly brackets and their own buttons here, and then arrow keys on the other half of the keyboard. And media controls, these are the buttons I was showing you, the F and what have you, right? And the function keys up here as well. Gaming, I haven't really bothered setting this up good and proper. I don't know why there are 2 X buttons here. I started something, I never finished it off, right? It can even act as a mouse, right? So if I do this, now the mouse is moving as a result of me pressing keys on the keyboard, right? So yeah, so if you ever have a mouse and you run out of batteries, which happened to me, then you can do that. I've updated the latest version. What else is there? Oh yeah, you can do a bunch of other things as well, right? All like the tapping, threshold timer. You got a lot of customization you can do. Battery saving, LED stuff is pretty good, and you got constant backups of your of your keyboard as well. I save my backups for up to 6 months, which means if I wanted to, I can load any of these backups, which is any of my older configurations of the keyboard. So if anything, if I ever balk it, I can just load a backup and I can give you my backup if you want to have the same layout as I do. I do not recommend that because this is customized to my needs, which is one of the reasons for having this kind of keyboard, right? Because it's highly customizable, right? It's a very cool keyboard and I strongly recommend it. This is the alternative program. Vile, again, no, it is not even remotely as cool. It doesn't have the colors or anything like that. But that's because this might be for a keyboard that doesn't support it, right? The other stuff is the ZSA, Moonlander, Oryx. Is Oryx the software, right? Yeah, so ZSA Oryx is probably like the competing thing. But again, it is still not as nice as base core. But it's pretty good. I've used Oryx for 3 months. I had my Moonlander. Oryx is fine, right? It's not that you need to justify to your wife why you need another keyboard. The problem, Araga, is going to be how you're going to keep your wife off you, right? When you have this new cool keyboard, because she'd be on you like a band-aid, man. She'd be like,
oh, you're so handsome and sexy now with this cool new keyboard. I can't imagine not constantly hanging out with you.
Right? But if you have your old keyboard, it'd be like,
I don't know if I like you anymore with your terrible basic keyboard. You start to look old and unattractive to me.
Right? And your wife is taking a lot of testosterone to sound like that, right? Menopause, you know. Anyway, does it have AI? No, but they made a joke on the website about having AI, but they have like an AI assistant on the website, but they're like, it's like a mom and pop shop almost. They are very relatable, the people who work with this stuff, right? I got an email from him yesterday asking how things were going and telling me about some updates and stuff, right? And in his emails, like, give me a call if you want to chat about the keyboard or something like that, right? They have a Discord. You can go there and chat with them. Like, they're really, if you have any issues or want to know something, they're there to just answer questions, right? I think it's really good. I asked him about, because underneath the keyboard, there are 4 little screw holes. And I asked them about if they have some kind of mounts to, because some people want to mount these to like the armrest of the chair and stuff like that. And he linked to a bunch of maker stuff. They don't have brackets for them, but there's plenty of like maker stuff, so you can get them printed and such. Right? So armchair, keyboard. I'm sure you can see like a split here to get an idea for what's going on. Oh my god, that was not what I had in mind. Let's do armchair, keyboard, split instead, right? So people do things like this, and I wanted to know about the like if they had like mounting brackets and stuff for this. That's just insane. How does that work? Why is never mind that now, right? Squirrel brain, stop it. Yeah. Ultimate vibe coder setup, yeah. No AI, waste of money. I just told you they have AI, just not in the keyboard. Right? I bet they do, right? If you live in Australia or New Zealand, then I think the Glove 80 is probably a good choice, right? It should be in the keyboard. I don't think so. Battery life would suffer, wouldn't it? You're in New Zealand. Oh, North or Southern Ireland. Okay, it's very important when you're going to get banned. I'm kidding. But the Glove 8 is made in New Zealand, so it should be very easy to. I don't know why they make them in New Zealand. That's insane, but they do. So, oh man, right? I knew this guy from Auckland. Or just outside of Auckland, right? From North Shore. And he kept talking about the Southern Island all the time, right? They are still expensive. I bet they are, but not as expensive as buying it in Europe, right? You drive past North Shore every day. Nice. Yeah, he was my flatmate for a while, but he moved to the US. We met some girls in Spain, and he really hit it off with that girl. I was drunk and I totally ruined it with the other girl. And they stayed together for a long time after that, and eventually he just moved there. Only rich dude lives there? Oh my god, that must have been some serious gentrification, Ford, because this guy was not rich and did not come from a rich family. You're gonna get the Glove 80 soon? I mean, you should get the DeFi. By the way, they mentioned in the latest video as well that if you buy it to import it into the US, you should not worry about the tariffs. They had an explanation why in the video, which I didn't pay attention to because I don't care about tariffs and I don't live in the US. But just watch the latest update video if you are worried about that, right? He had some comment on that, so you don't have to worry about the import tax thing, right? Nice try. Digma is costly, but a Digma DeFi basic, right? A wired one without all the fancy pants stuff is gonna cost you the same as a Moonlander, roughly, right? And then you don't, with a Moonlander, you don't even have the choice. But of wireless node. But here's the thing: if you choose a Digma DeFi or a Moonlander, it should not really depend on the cost, right? Because they roughly can be in the same ballpark, right? I think it's like maybe $10, $15 either way, right? But the important thing is more the ergonomics for what works for you, right? So if you buy the DeFi and you feel like that doesn't work for you, you want to try Moonlander, you can send the DeFi back and get your money back. The only thing you're paying for is the shipping of returning the unit, right? And they sell refurbished units as well, right? The funny thing is in the video, he didn't say, I almost commented on this thing, right? I'm reasonably sure they do, right? But I can't say that's a fact, but they didn't say that they clean the units, but I'm reasonably sure they did. So we look at the units, we make sure it works and blah, 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 and repackage the units for you. But I think they should have said, we also clean the units in case the person who had it, because you're allowed to have it for like a month or so before you like, you can return it within a month, right? And in case there was some kind of crazy sandwich person using the keyboard before, I'm reasonably confident they're going to clean it. But don't quote me on that. They should have said that in the video, right? Or maybe that's what refurbished mean. I don't know, right? No, it isn't. And with the DeFi, you can return the keyboard if you don't like it and buy a Moonlander. I don't know if you can do that with the Moonlander, right? The thing that's going to be the deciding factor between the DeFi and the Moonlander is probably going to be the angle of the keyboard cluster, right? So if we look at the Moonlander here and we look at the DeFi, if you look at the angle of this thing, right, how much you have to twist your thumb to reach this cluster compared to what you have here, where you arguably don't have to do much movement outwise with your thumb and all. And here's the thing, right? Because this gave me pinky fatigue. And I talked to the DeFi people about this. I said I had the Moonlander and I got very tired in the pinky because of that. And he said that's not because of how you use your pinky. That's because of the thumb cluster, right? So if you get pinky fatigue from this thing, this is a better choice. And here's the other thing. You have a lot of buttons here in the thumb cluster, but you're not necessarily going to use all these buttons, right? If you use these buttons, depends a lot on your, like how your hand is, right? These are no keys for me, right? I don't use these keys. I use that very infrequently. So these three keys gets barely any use. That's a joke. I don't use that. That's for checking battery level. I don't use that frequently either, right? And that's not mapped to anything. And I don't have these mapped to anything either, right? I haven't figured out anything I need to use them for. I'd rather use things like layers to move rather than moving my hand around the keyboard. I'd rather move between layers, right? So you're probably going to use a good 4 or 5 of these thumb cluster keys as opposed to all 8 of them. Is that 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? Yeah. So you probably use like half of these thumb clusters than not. But if you use the inner half or the outer half, that depends on your biomechanics, right? Whereas with the Moonlander, you don't get a choice. So if you buy the Moonlander or if you buy the DeFi, you don't like it, you feel like a Moonlander is better for you, then just send it back, right? You pay for shipping, but it's better to pay for shipping and get the keyboard that you want than pay for shipping twice and buy a keyboard you don't want that you can't send back. I don't know if you can send the Moonlander back. I'm confident that you can, but I don't know how easy that is. All right. Just connect them to the teapot. There you go, right? But yeah, I think it's. I definitely think the Moonlander is a decent keyboard if you can swing it. But personally, I prefer the DeFi. They told me when they sent me the DeFi, if you don't like it, don't worry about it. Send it back and no sweat, right? It's all free of charge. I got it. I used it for about a week and I had realized at that point, I was like, no, I'm keeping this thing. And then 2 weeks in, I was like, is it still the honeymoon period? Because I really love this keyboard. But no, it really, really is a good keyboard. I can wholeheartedly, in good conscience, recommend this keyboard. I would buy this keyboard if they hadn't given it to me. If they said, you have to send this keyboard back, I will send them a check instead. The check would bounce because I'm poor, but they're in spirit, I would, right? Okay. Anyway, I don't think we can fit this on one line, can we? Yes, we can. All right, we built our user input now, and that's pretty cool. So we have input widgets now. Would the check bounce? No, I don't think so. Who sends a check these days anyway, right? How is it compared to the Ergodox EC? I haven't used the Ergodox EC. The Ergodox came before the Moonlander. And if we look at the shape of the Ergodox, I know Hardliner has an Ergodox and a Moonlander, so he would be better in answering which one is better. But I would have thought the thumb cluster on the Ergodox is better than the Moonlander, looking at this, knowing what I know today. All right. One thing I have to say, I don't know about the Ergodox, but I have to say that I really love the build quality of both the DeFi and the Moonlander, right? This is all brushed aluminium, right? The handrest is magnetic and removable. It's got this nice rubber pad there, right? There we go, right? And the one thing that this thing can do as well, not only can you tent it that way, but you can also tilt it forward if you get the tilt kit, right? It has one here that makes the keyboard lean forward instead of down, right? And he said to me as well, if you ruin your keyboard by, and this might be true for both the Ergodox and the Moonlander as well, I don't know this, right? If you ruin the keyboard by spilling water on it or whatever, right, you can just buy a replacement PCB. You don't have to buy a brand new keyboard. Clean the keys, clean everything, replace the PCB for $25 or whatever it costs. I don't know the exact price, but and you're good, right? And it's normal screws or anything. It's not a problem for you to open the keyboard or anything. Right? Why I'm not a streamer? I think you'll find, Pharaoh, that all streamers that have less than thousands of views are not rich streamers. Okay. I did tell you guys how much I make in a month per streaming, and I think there was a lot of pity coming out of chat after that. I think even a few subs. But the long and short of it is this, all right? It is an investment. It is a more expensive keyboard than some rubbish keyboard from Amazon for $10 or £10 or whatever, right? But my reasoning for buying a keyboard like this is the same as the reason I spend a lot of money on my bed and sofa. Sadly, not my chair. This was before, right? When I had money, when I worked as a consultant and not an idiot streamer, right? Spending a lot of money on something you're going to use a lot is not a bad investment, right? Although I don't know why I still have this chair. I hate it. We should do like a sub goal for a less crappy chair. But at first I have to cover the stupid plumbing thing. Never mind though, right? I drove a Toyota Corolla from 2006 until it broke down and it wasn't worth fixing, so they scrapped it. And now I don't have a car anymore, right? I am not what you'd call a successful streamer, okay? All right, but I am successful at programming, and I have now programmed a successful. Success is amazing in the input field. There we go, right? Marvin, thank you. Thank you so much. Where's the bunny? There's the bunny. Come on up, bunny. Come on. You can do it. There you go. With a little hop. with a little hop. He was so happy. He was so, I'm happy too. Thank you, Marvin. How's it going, Techie? How you doing? How's your day going? Okay, we got an input field. Who's excited? I am. Are you excited? All right, we can put the if statement here instead. If this is true, then we're just gonna do that. Otherwise, if the direction is, I don't think we use this function, by the way. Let's get rid of it. Why isn't this working? It is working. Why isn't it working? That, oh, is it the wrong one? Because I started rewriting that. You know what? I'm a pillock. Don't tell anyone. Yeah, we don't even use that one, right? Maybe a plastic chair. Do I not have that one? No, I have like white folding chairs that are worse than this chair, right? I don't use a lot of Vim extensions. So if we look at my NeoVim config, I can do a quick setup here to update it. These are the plugins that I use, right? FZF for the fuzzy file finder, right? I don't use Telescope because my Vim config is very compatible with both NeoVim and Vim, right? NeoVim LSP config, this means that I don't have LSP set up in regular Vim, but I'm fine with that. Rust Vim, this old plugin has been around forever. Tag bar is really useful if you want to see something at sort of a bird's eye perspective. What functions you have, what constants you have, and so on and so forth. So tag bar will allow you to jump. So if, for instance, we want to go to this template here, bam, there we go, right? It's pretty good. If you want to find the on key for the input, there it is, right? Tag bar in all its glory. You need like C tags installed for that as well, but who cares? Tiny is no longer used. That's going to be the syntax highlighting for AML. Just haven't got around to write that. That's my own Rust plugin. It allows me to do things like, where is this thing, right? Hop into main and I can set a breakpoint and run this if I want to. We can look at the backend here and there's a lot of information. I'm not going to unpack that. But yeah, it just allows me to conveniently set breakpoints and do things like you would in a normal IDE in essence, right? And then Altisnips is really good. That allows me to do things like, let's get rid of you, type Anna base, and there will be the base setup for an Anathema application, right? It will just do all this stuff for me. PL for print line, and so on and so forth, right? So that's what that one is used for. Vim commentary allows you to comment out code using Vim motions. That one should be built into Vim. Why it isn't is beyond me. So I can just go comment everything, go comment around paragraph, go comment in curly brackets, go comment around curly, wait, go, get out of here, get back here, right? Go comment around curly brackets and so on and so forth, right? Really, I would have thought that would be in and around. There we go, right? Which would be the same as this. But if there's a space in here and you do paragraph, that will not be the same as that, right? Anyway, so that's Vim commentary. Amazing stuff. Everyone should have that. Fugitive is really good, mainly because I can see who did what, right? Gblame. Who wrote this code? There is not there. Okay, what about here? Who wrote this code? Really? Okay, well, I know this exists. So who wrote this code? I did. And I haven't committed that, right? I did. I wrote this code, but it's not all me. Just this file happened to be all me, right? So that's Vim Fugitive. And then Vim Surround is also really useful for when you want to surround something, right? Let's say I want to surround this with double quotes, right? Shift S, double quote, done. Right? You want to surround with single quote, Shift S, single quote. Want to change single quote to double quote, right? Want to surround something in a function call. Hello world. Bam, function call, right? Really, Vim Surround is also really good, right? And Vim Wiki is where I keep all my notes, right? So this is my diary where I write how I like long walks on the beach and stuff. But these are just like notes I make throughout the days or or a month. I haven't done a lot in May. Remember this thing needs more notes. Okay. Anyway, but yes. So various thoughts that I have is done in VimWiki, and then of course I have like the this is today stuff, right? So this is like the root of all my notes of things that I'm gonna get back to and look at later. Terrible ideas for things. Horrible game engine. We're kind of working on this thing, but it's not gonna be called that. So yeah, that's my Vim plugins. I don't really have anything else, and it's all very simple. That one we don't need anymore. Vim surround is great. Jump into double quotes across multiple lines without a plugin. So it depends entirely on what you want to do. So if I want to jump into this double quote here, then a simple search for a double quote would do that, right? I don't know what happens if we talk about inside. I can do CI double quote to change inside double quote if I want to, right? Or change around double quotes if I want to get rid of them. But I don't know if that's what you meant, right? And then you can do with the percentage sign, you can jump between start and end of curly brackets and parentheses, right? I don't know if you can jump between start and end of this. No, you won't do that, right? Yeah, it depends a lot on what you do, right? So where were we? Okay, so we have an input field. We can actually start doing this. I'm gonna add that to extras. I don't know if we actually have a log for this. No, we don't. I'm gonna remove some things I threw in there yesterday about the splits. Apparently, I've already done that. Yeah. Says we're back to code. How do you get a footer to stick to the bottom of the terminal? Now, that's not really a code issue or a code question. That's more about the terminal multiplexer that you're using, which might be tmux or whatever, or the terminal itself, right? So if you, all right, enjoy your breakfast, Pharaoh. If you are using something like tmux, then you can choose to have a footer or a header. Now, I don't have that. But tmux status. What I'm talking about is, and what I think that you are talking about is this part at the bottom of the screen, right? The thing you see down here. Whether you have it down here or up here, that's entirely up to you, right? But that comes from either your terminal or your terminal multiplexer has to offer you that functionality. It would be insanely cool if we could have made that with Anathema, but we don't have a terminal application, right? Oh, in Anathema. Wow, now that is very, very simple, right? Allow me to show you how simple that is. If we open up the index, here we go, right? We have a vertical stack. As a matter of fact, why don't I start with an empty application here? Empty as my soul. And we run this thing, that's all we're gonna see. Now, if I want something above this thing at the top of the screen, I can just put in a vertical stack and I say footer here and header here. Now, they're just going to be on top of each other. So what I need to do is I need to place a spacer in between. So now it's moved the footer to the bottom. But in reality, what I want is I want to put some content in between here. So I'm going to use expand instead. Expand will lay out all the widgets except for the expand widgets first. And then we'll take the remaining space and divide that between the expand widgets. So if I put some text here, I am here, we're going to see the footer, the header, and then I am here, right? Let's make this thing stick out a little bit, right? So we're going to put a spacer there, right? We're going to make this thing be a little bit more visual, right? So background could be red. Okay, now you can really see the header, okay? Foreground black. Whoops. Foreground black. Like that, right? Now, you don't have to restart your application the way I did that, right? Because it's hot reloading. Now, if we say that we have a, let's set a background here, background to blue. Okay, so now that's all blue and probably burns a hole in your retina, right? So we have to set the foreground to black here again so we can read the text, right? Now, if I do another expand though in here, you'll see what happens, right? And we change you to magenta, right? So we're dividing the space between. If I want this expand to be a little bit larger, then I can set the scaling factor to 2 instead, right? Or 4. So 4 units of space. Of the total space here, 4, if we divide it into 5, 4 of those units go to this guy and the 5th one to this guy, right? If we add another expand here, this will shrink this guy because now you're dividing 4 between 6, right? And I say, okay, you get a factor of 4 as well. So now these two should share 8 out of 9 slices, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So that's it, really. It's really, really that simple how to do any of that. Now, instead of doing all this stuff here, I made separate components for them, which makes it a little bit easier for me to read. So if I want to look at the header ammo, that's it, right? It looks very similar to what we just did, right? We can make this configurable, right? So I have a label saying header here. So if I run this now, this one says header. If I change the label to not header, it's just going to update that, right? There we go. An AML file is an anathema markup language. Anathema markup language, which is the language designed to describe layouts. It's not a programming language. It's a markup language, which means you can't really do things like set variables and stuff. But that doesn't mean that we don't actually have variables. You can, in fact, declare global values, right? Let's say that we have a theme here that anyone should be allowed to change, right? This is one of the benefits of doing it this way. Let's say that we have a text color, right? That's going to be red. We don't have to use red. We can use hex values as well, right? That could be a hex color, right? We can have text and background could just be black. Right? Now I have to run this in a different terminal because NeoVim can't deal with that, right? But that's okay. Cargo run, no. Stream control, cargo run release. There we go, right? So I have declared a theme here, and now I can just change the color in my header to be, instead of background gray, I say theme dot, was it back? Yes, it was back, because it's black. Let's change this thing, right, to something less stupid then, right? Actually, that's not possible. Let's go with some various colors. There we go, right? A light green. Now, here's the interesting part, because, you know, it's all interesting, right? Let's say that I give you the stream control program now, right? I give you target, debug, stream control. You can run this, but what you can also do is modify the template, the main template, right? Did I not save that? Oh, it's in the index, sorry. So I modify this template and say, I want black instead, right? Black was better, okay? And then I run this again. Note that I didn't recompile the application and now it is black. As a matter of fact, I can go here and modify this thing and change it to red and it will just work, okay? We haven't recompiled the Rust code. This means that whatever program you build, you can ship your templates with it and anyone who gets your program can go, I don't like how you have done this. As a matter of fact, I don't like you, so I'm going to change this to be horizontal instead, right? Which makes little to no sense. But I'm going to expand this, and I'm going to expand that and this, and now I'm doing something insane, and now I'm making everything horizontal instead, right? I don't know why anyone would do that, right? That would be insane, 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 thank you, insane, right? But you can. So instead of what you normally get with two applications like Tmux or Vim or whatever it is, right? Whatever it is you're going to customize, you get to customize it based on what the program author gave you. So when someone writes a TUI program like HTOP or whatever it is, they have to code into the program a way to customize it to your liking, if they can be bothered, right? But here, that comes for free. So not only do you not have to encode it, but you're giving all this layout power to the user of your program, right? That means that you can do so much insane and destructive stuff to someone else's program, right? Without them having to worry about it. Because we can ship, we don't have to, but we can ship the templates with it, right? So that's the essence of Anathema. The layout is expressed in a template. It's hot reloadable for when you want to try things out. You can ship your template. You don't have to, but you can ship your templates with your program, or you can embed them so you can't change them, right? And you can use other people's components as well, right? As a matter of fact, the input component that we're using here is coming from another crate. And we just expose the template this way. So if I wanted to use this input with my own template, I could just change the template. I could just put an actual template here. And I would just use that template with this component. Now, that's obviously subject to me knowing what things are in the component. But I mean, it's Rust. We can just go and look at it, right? We can see what the state offers us, right? You can rearrange your components. You can make things minimalistic. You can do so many different things, right? And once I figure out self-referential templates, which I will do at some point, then togglebit anathema. Then this comment here will hopefully be a thing in the past, right? It is not great when it comes to building dynamic layouts such as splitting buffers or your next Vim clone, right? So being able to split things like this, it's not ideal for because we can't have cyclical dependencies, right? But that's gonna change soon. Hello, Kevin. That's gonna change soon, and you'll be able to do that, right? Now I'm gonna do probably 2 streams today because I have to go now and do some things, but I will be back. But we have the input field now, so we can actually build the control panel for the stream. And I can show you guys how easy it is to build with things, right? I'm going to publish the input field shortly. And I will encourage anyone who... wants to participate to play around with it. And we're gonna release this onto Crates.io soon. There's like a handful of bugs to iron out. It's not a biggie, but I will do so shortly. And I'm gonna start making videos around this to just show how to build basic things, right? With this, we start with a basic hello world kind of thing, and then we get into more and more complex layouts and stuff with this. But anyway, I must run. I shall be back in a little bit. I don't know. It'll probably be after lunch. But yes, I have some phone calls to make. You guys are wonderful.